Hey, it's Ben from Alternate Experiences again. So, I wanted to give you some ideas of what to think about when designing a team building activity. Now, we go through the lens of games. We always run games for our team building activities, but these will apply to any type of team building activity. So there are 8 core things that I wanted to run you through. The first one is logistics. I would say the number one thing. I know it's a bit dry and a bit dull, but logistics are often the biggest challenge when it comes to a team building activity. So for example, say you're going to design a team building activity for 100 people. Let's say it's puzzle based. At a very logistical level, how are you going to score those puzzles? Say you're breaking them into different teams. How are you going to receive those scores? How are you going to receive those answers quickly enough? How are you going to avoid a bottleneck of literal puzzle scoring? Are you going to use technology for that? Are you going to manually score it? What's the best way? So logistics are a huge factor when thinking about the type of activity you want to design. You don't want to design a fantastic activity, but it just doesn't quite flow and it just gets in these kind of fits and starts because the logistics just aren't well oiled. So logistics, I would absolutely put right at the top. Always think about logistics. Second thing you want to think about is the audience. What kind of audience is this intended for? Now, what I mean by that is what type of company or what type of organization, what kind of people? Is it a really broad group? Is it a younger demographic or an older demographic? You want to be a little bit careful, not make stereotypes here, but you do want to be a little bit aware of the audience that you're making this team building activity for and make sure that this content is appropriate, not just appropriate, but also relevant. Say it's an accountancy firm. Can you link that into the game somehow? If it's an escape room, escape the bad accounting. Okay, that's not a great idea. It's a bit boring. But anyway, that could work. That could work. So just think a bit about your audience. Third thing, I always like to say you should have some kind of hero's journey. What is the end goal people are reaching here? So people want to feel like the hero a lot of the time. And so how are you making them feel like they're completing this grand mission or this grand journey, no matter how simple that activity? It's always good to introduce that so that even if, say, there's a winning team at the end, it might feel hard to make like a hero's journey, but at least recognizing the winning team and saying, oh, you're the real heroes here. You got a fantastic score. Just try and build that in, I would say. It's really important in particular for games, that hero's journey. The fourth thing you want to think about is urgency, particularly early on in a team building activity. What are you doing to really get that sense of urgency going? Otherwise, it can be a bit of a slow start. It's often good to start with some quite quick fire activities near the start of that team building game. So you might want some quick fire rounds, 1 minute each, and it just builds that sense of urgency to get people engaged quickly. Now, that urgency can wear people down over time. So if you constantly use really intense urgency for the entirety of the game, people do get a bit exhausted by it. But early on in the activity, it's always good to try and bring in that urgency to get things going quick and really build that energy. Fifth thing to think about is what I call moments. How are you creating peak moments within this game? So peak moments in the storyline, perhaps, or maybe if it's a longer game, there's a sudden switch of format. And these are the moments that people will remember in the game in particular. You don't just want the game to start, say it's an escape room again, solve puzzle, solve puzzle, solve puzzle, solve puzzle, done. Like, what are you peppering in there that creates these moments of, oh, I really remember that. So you might bring everyone back together again if you've got them in sub-teams, have them share some of their answers of what they've done so far. Just something, create these moments. Sixth point, what kind of format in terms of how people are playing it? So are people playing individually? Are they playing cooperatively, so in teams? Or maybe a bit of both? Or actually, say you've got 200 people. Is everyone playing together? That is possible. There are game formats that we've run where everyone plays as a whole group. There are certain formats that can work quite well for that. And this kind of links back to the objectives of your activity. What will work best? If communication and things like that are important, maybe solo play isn't the best thing to do here, unless, of course, people are playing individually for a time, but having to go over to others to get information. So just think about that kind of format. Seventh thing, story. I always recommend giving a bit of story to your activity. This is what we referenced a bit with the hero's journey, but if it's a treasure hunt, what is the lost treasure? Give some background to this. Get people excited in the story. Make them feel immersed in some way. It just really ups the ante and makes it feel a lot more exciting. And then eighth, final thing is the social element. So a lot of activities leverage the social side of things. In fact, as I record this, Wordle has been really big and really popular. And what Wordle does really well is it leverages the social component. So you can share your score and your answer for a particular round on social media with your friends, but you can even see like how someone has solved it, what letters they've put at certain points. So it really generates this discussion. So the social sharing element works really well, because what you want is those water cooler moments after the activity saying, oh, what were you doing during this point of the puzzle, or whatever it might be. So if there are ways they can socially share that easily, then that really works well, and it really helps cement those kind of team connections as well. So those are the 8 core components that I would suggest thinking about when designing a team building activity. There's obviously loads of other things to think about, like what type of game it's going to be. But I would say with these 8 things, it gives you a solid base for good activity design. And it's always what we follow when we're designing our games.